This is Working for Progress, a podcast that connects us through conversations about how we craft our working lives and make progress. We'll be joined by our communities from Tribe Porty and Keystone. Tribe Porty is a community co-working space and creative hub. We are full of entrepreneurs, social enterprises, freelancers, charities, and SMEs. Keystone is the other social enterprise which supports women to reimagine their working lives. We do this by providing a holistic approach to business through courses, programs, mentoring, group coaching, and events.
Welcome to today's conversation. I'm Alice, the community manager at Tribe Porty.
And I'm Dani, founder and director of both Tribe Porty and Keystone.
Here at Working for Progress, we're all about connecting good people, sharing their stories, their challenges, and the progress they make for themselves and for others. We hope this podcast challenges your ways of thinking and inspires you to work for progress.
Working for Progress starts with simple pleasures, finishes in awe, and meanders through career journeys in between. Today we welcome Nasim Forootan. Nasim is a culture and learning holder at Dark Matter Labs. In addition to this, she is a member of Soul.com cooperative. Nasim has a focus on liberating knowledge and information as well as connecting communities. Welcome, Nasim.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
So easy conversation. It's for us to kind of explore your work to date, but also your life a little bit as well and who you are. So warm-up question. Give us your 5 simple pleasures.
Definitely dancing. Just do it all the time. I think even when I'm cooking, which connects to the next one, cooking. I actually really enjoy it. I think it just keeps me really grounded. Singing by myself, but also singing with other people. It just brings me a lot of joy. And having a cup of coffee with a good book. Definitely something that gives me a lot of calmness. And I think, and actually it's related to what we were having a conversation before. I think I'm rediscovering the importance of breathing and just keeping me in the present moment. And as a pleasure that I've started to explore recently. It's, I think, quite new for me.
Lovely. I love all those 5, I have to say. Good for me as well. What kind of dancing? Any kind of dancing, or are you a specific type of dancer?
I love Latin music, but I'm from Ecuador, and actually I think I just miss that part of my culture. But in general, I just like dancing to everything. But I think that's the one that I just put really loudly in the house when Aaron is out.
Love it. Tell us what values you live by, or what kind of values you hold important.
I think for me, one of the biggest values that I think I always look into is coherence, and just in the sense that our words and our actions are in alignment, and in any place that we also work, or the things that the organization is actually doing. I feel like I don't function really well when those things are not in alignment. I actually feel it in my body a lot, and it creates a bit of resistance for me to actually know where to put my attention to. And then the other really strong value for me, I think, is trust. I just think trust is embedded on everything that we do. And when trust, even in our personal life, when we hold conversations with people, when we're working in organizations, when we even see our community spaces or the relationships that we have with governments or organizations, in between them, is I think one element that is constantly broken. And if we just had a tiny bit more trust in each other, the world would be a better place. But it requires a lot of detachment and a lot of desire to show up in a different way and see the person with qualities rather than just always on their flaws.
I love both of those. You're right. If we had a bit more of both of those things in our, particularly our political spheres, things would be very different. So that kind of leads us to kind of the next question about how you embody these values. You kind of talked about you feel them when they're not in alignment. Have you always felt that way, or have you just learned through experience, and has that kind of helped shape you in terms of where you're going in your career?
I think a bit of a mix. I think it's definitely been a bit of both. I think coherence is something that I definitely was very present in our family as I grew up. My dad would always just talk very openly about how important it was to like your whatever you said was followed by the actions, and it's probably not something that I lived by every day, and it's always something that is like on my mind to like, okay, like when I was younger, okay, how do I actually make sure that I'm doing what I'm saying? And it's been a constant learning and practice to make sure that muscle is strengthened. Like it wasn't probably when I was younger, not something that was there completely natural, but it's developed, and I always keep it in mind that it's something that I always need to keep present in exercise. And I think it comes as well from like the Baha'i upbringing, and that is my religion. And actually there is a quote that I think that's why my dad always brought it very present into our family. It's just like that, yeah, like let your deeds know your words be your adorning. And it was something that even my dad had it printed in the house. It was just something that was embedded as I grew up. And I think trust has been something that actually has come much later in life. And I had like a funny relationship, I think, with trust. Like I would trust anyone all the time, and actually then had a tiny bit of a wobble because maybe I was too trustworthy. And then it made me feel like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't just trust anybody. But through that process also I realized that no, like actually it's okay to trust. Like it's okay to open yourself and just be vulnerable sometimes on how you're feeling, what you're seeing, and having sometimes difficult conversations to be able to explore the nuance of things a little bit more, and just have faith that things will come out right. Because if you already go into a situation with like a bit of doubt, and you feel like the other person feels it, and then you don't let, like, I think both parts actually explore the relationship that could be, because we're holding on to something already from the beginning. And I think actually, yeah, the journey of trust has come even stronger over the past few years, and it's something that I'm constantly exploring and even understanding, like in the organizations that I'm working with, like how does that look like? How does that manifest in the different things that we have put into practice, in the conversations that we hold, and like the power that people can have in a relationship. But once you just decide to go into a mindset with a conversation of like, I'm going to trust this person, I want to trust the process, all of a sudden magic starts to happen and you see things unfold in a different way. And it's given me that reassurance that having that attitude it's good.
It's
like,
good.
Yeah.
Those are some deep thoughts and very interesting in terms of, I suppose, your work. It made me think about the two, how they feed each other. So the coherence to be who you are at all times, you know, behind closed doors, not when someone's just watching you, like all the time, how that muscle needs flexed and built, but also how that then feeds into trust. So you then trust yourself more because you've been thinking about your coherence and how you think and how you act in your life, and then that trust within yourself must
manifest to the trust of other people. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I love it.
I never said it like that, but actually it's so true. It's like it's this relationship that these two things actually come together really naturally. And you're right, like I think the more you trust in trusting others, that is just it expands. And actually it reminds me, like I think when I participated in one of the keynote courses, Keystone courses, you spoke actually a little bit about trust and being vulnerable, and like how sometimes we also have this relationship of like, okay, we need to like completely trust everybody to be able to be vulnerable, and sometimes being vulnerable enables that space for trust. And it's something that's never left my mind, and it was really, and that's what I'm saying, actually it's something that's come back to my life in different ways in the last few years.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Slightly switching gears, although I love this conversation, I feel like I could talk about this forever. Yeah, tell us your worst or most random job to date.
A few. Yeah, I don't know how to start. Like, probably, yeah, when I think about it, it's not necessarily being the job in itself. And not necessarily just like the worst job. I think it's been elements in jobs that have been the worst, not the whole experience. And like I I don't know why this just came to my mind. But when I was doing my master's degree, I started working in a cafe because I really wanted to learn like how to make lattes and all this. And it's something that I've never done before. And it was really cool because I was like much older than anyone who was actually doing their master's at the time. And they were all like very young, like 20 years old. And they were working on that. And I was just like almost 30. And I was just like, I've never done this. I'm going to do it. I was so excited. And within that sphere of work, I really enjoyed certain elements of that, but also was really like bitter to experience power dynamics when you are working as a waitress or serving someone coffee. And I was glad that I was there to experience it. Like I was doing that job because I wanted to learn, and I wanted to just do something else during my free time. But it was really, like a bittersweet experience of like, oh, like sometimes you would do something with so much joy and the intention was actually right, and how people would absorb it because they were having a bad day that would completely lash out on you. And I think it really changed my experience on like, oh wow, like I don't think I completely fully understood what goes behind doors, especially on the hospitality industry, and how sometimes we might be having a bad day and we might be lashing on someone else, and maybe it wasn't even their fault, like it was on us. And in a way, I'm glad I experienced that. And like one particular setting that comes to mind, actually, I had this one day, this guy was just like, I came and he was just like screaming at me, and I was like, what's happened? He's like, you stole my phone. I was like, I really didn't. Like I really didn't. I looked everywhere. Like he called my manager to look at the cameras, and I was so nervous. And it turns out he's put it in a pocket of his own backpack. But actually, then he was just like, he didn't even apologize. He was like the pride of like, oh, you're just serving me coffee, I'm just gonna leave. And it was that moment that actually made it even more like, wow, like I can't actually believe that this happens. And sometimes there's not even that other element to just recognize, look, it was my bad. I made a mistake and sorry about that. So yeah, I think that's one of the stories that come to mind.
I think everybody should have a service job at some point in their life. I think it's such a good point. I've told my kids that as well. Alice has a long time been in the service industry.
Long time sufferer.
But actually is why I actually said on this community manager post that I wanted someone that had service industry experience, because there's a real skill to helping people and being able to give someone a service and not expect anything back
in
necessarily. Just by actually enjoying taking care of people. I'd like to hope that everybody here is very appreciative of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah. What is the biggest risk that you've taken in your working life?
I think that the biggest risk was literally just a few months ago. Last year I had like a big wobble on, I think with being a recent mom, and after the pandemic I had this like, I think a bit of panic of life, of like, actually what am I doing and what am I manifesting in the world, and went through a bit of a crisis of like, okay, where do I want to put my attention, because I'm really passionate about certain things and I couldn't really see it come into life in certain elements, and I couldn't really see how I could create the time for that. And I took a bit of like, probably not an approach that everybody would take, and I was just like, I spoke to my old boss and I was like, oh my god, this is probably the worst thing to do, but I want to leave, but I want us to work together on how I like to exit the organization, because I really, really, really loved the organization I was working on. And it was more like I wanted to go and find something else. And through that process, I was literally just investigating and having conversations with people and trying to understand like what was out there that it was just making me just feel a bit more connected to what I was passionate about. And during that time I was doing a democracy fellowship in Germany, and that started to make things a lot clearer, especially working with like leadership spaces, creating spaces for especially ethnic minorities to come together and think about their communities and how they can act as agents of change, but how do we ramp up these elements to create a safe space for them to explore without judgment and without teaching, but with a capacity building approach for them to discover what can they bring and how do they hold conversation for other people. And that started to become really present. And I was like, oh, okay, that's like literally, even my body was giving me signals. But through that period of time, I really couldn't find, and I think I'm still in that space. I wasn't brave enough to just get started by myself something. So it was like a side gig. And then I decided to just finish my work and trust the universe. And I was like, I'm gonna finish and I'm just gonna take a sabbatical and explore what will come. And what's been really interesting through that process is that, again, it's that element of trust, that sometimes you just have to trust your gut and trust yourself that something will come, and that when you know what you're looking for, some things will start to show up on the way. And I am very thankful that I took that risk and that I took like a bit of a space. And actually, like, I think I would, in hindsight, I would have even taken a tiny bit longer. And I think we need to formalize, or normalize sabbaticals in our life, and taking that step to just be like, okay, I need to pause and need to observe my next step a bit more. So that was my controlled risk.
That is a risk, and it's not. You're right. It's not very common. How did you find that strength? What were you listening to? What did you have any kind of practice around listening to what something in your body was telling you, that it was the timing of things, was that it was time to go, even though you were happy and you liked the organization? But how did you honor that in yourself?
I think a bit of a mix. I don't think I could have done it completely by myself. And I really had amazing people in my previous organization. The people that I work with, especially my previous bosses like Neil and Andy, they were amazing. And I being able to have those conversations so openly and having someone to help you in that process, I definitely needed that. And it was just it gave me the confidence to be yeah. And actually it even taught me how beautiful exiting an organization also can be when someone helps you find the way, because I knew where I was going. And actually Neil was just oh, is it, how about I also connect you with these people that you can start to have conversations, because that's actually the space that you've been looking into, and I know someone there. And actually it really helped me also to understand okay, yeah, I'm going to start having conversations with these people or with these people. And what's been beautiful is that even though the relationship as a work has finished, it's still now it's an ongoing relationship of friendship, because it ended in a really nice and a way that we worked on it together, rather than just being no, I'm leaving or you have to live. It was just yeah, we were in it together in a way. And I definitely felt it like that.
Oh, that sounds I'm glad you're talking about it, because it's something that you don't hear very often. And I think he or they, whoever they were, if it was more than one person, must have enjoyed that exit as well, because actually to be left by someone that you really like working with hurts too, but to be able to help them navigate to something more that they're being called for, what a much better way to run a business, and credit to them. Yes,
and I think it's again, it's something that should be normalized. I feel those open conversations that everyone holds on to the fear or the okay, I'm not gonna say anything, and everybody is suffering sometimes, and it's actually, why don't we have a conversation about it? Because sometimes it's just that bravery of having that conversations that opens that sphere of how could we do it together, rather than just being oh, I feel really guilty, I want to go do something else. But I also love being here, so I don't know what to do. And it felt that definitely made a big difference to me.
Yeah, more of that. Let's talk about that more, because I think that is the way forward. So you obviously wouldn't take it back. And any other kind of big takeaways from that experience of, I suppose, one, listening to your call, and two, being open and really honest with your working colleagues. Anything else that you learned?
I think also just through the have conversations with other people. It's doing research. you don't lose anything when you're exploring these avenues and you don't know what's gonna come up. And like, it's a risk in a way sometimes to be like really vulnerable, to be like, hi, I really am exploring where I want to take my next step, then can I just have lunch with you? And just reaching out to people. And what was really, I was really impressed by is like how open people are to have these conversations. I think we think they're like, people are not, and people have really, really busy agendas. But when you go through that process of like reaching out, messaging people on, like, I messaged so many people on LinkedIn and being like, hi, I love the work that you're doing. I would love to go into that in a way, but I'm exploring actually what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Would you be up for having a chat online, or would you be up to meeting for coffee and lunch? And I think I actually had every single one of the conversations that I reached out to, and I was really thankful for that, because also like those people just like also sheds light on the way, and actually helped me understand like, okay, definitely that's something that is not gonna work for me, or that is a context that I don't fully really understand. Or they said, oh, actually, by having the conversation, have you met this person? Can we put you in touch? And I was like, yes, like, thank you so much. And it I think it's taught me as well, like, we should all be like that. Like, actually, like, I feel now more conscious to also be generous with that time for anyone who reaches out on that space.
That's good advice too. Part of what I hope this podcast does is reach younger people trying to navigate their career, or at least start a direction. And I think like 2 amazing big points around conversations and honesty and trust. So thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
I'm curious myself a little bit more about your current work and what you're working on right now.
So I work in 2 organizations at the moment. I work in Dark Matter Labs as culture and learning holder, and I've literally just started this role. I've been there for 3 months, and 2 of the elements that we're exploring in Dark Matter Labs is like, how do we create a learning organization? Because Dark Matter Labs is like a for public good, for like public purpose, and a lot of the projects that we're doing within that sphere of work, like, just really need a lot of collaboration and learning. Like, we need to be generous with the learning that we have, or the questions that we're sitting with. And part of the job that I've just started, and basically I'm taking part of the legacy of some people who have done amazing work on this. It's like helping us work out loud with the world to invite for serendipity, I think. And I think part of that work is just like capturing learnings of the stuff that is happening within DM, and just being like, okay, we're working on governance, and these are the different spheres of work that we're looking into governance in neighborhoods, in cities, and communities, at actually planetary level. And when we're working on that, how do we capture that? And we just like create different, like we call them the downloads, where people come and they're invited, tiny bit of a podcast, and they all share what they've been working on, slides, learning, challenges. And I think for me, the most important thing is the questions that people are sitting with. And then how do we then share these with the world in an open way? Because what's happening, I think, for me in the world at the moment is that a lot, and you see this as in organizations, like people hold into knowledge as a source of power, but what if we also use it as a source of power to liberate and create together? And I think if we shared more openly those questions with the world, more people would be like, oh my God, I actually been sitting with the same question for so long, or have been exploring this in a different way. Could we work together? Instead of being like, oh, it's just the pride of my organization creating this, but actually this is about the world rather than me as an individual, or me or us as an organization. And I think there's a need on that a lot more. And then on Soul, I've been, I think, in the cooperative for over a year now, and Soul creates different materials to engage the capacity building processes and organizations to help them transform into communities. And actually, an element that we do is create workshops, and not only workshops, but actually accompany the process of helping start with, how do we create the foundations of trust within an organization? What does that look like? How do we create a core group when they come together and reflect about what is the shape we want that to take? if the organization looked like a community, what would that look like? What would it feel like? How do you reflect individually? How do you create a culture of reflection, like collectively? And these spaces also help us just like shape a vision of hope for an organization, because I think that's where the world gets most stuck some of the times. It's just like, where do you go? And how do you unleash that vision together to know where you're going to go together? And basically, we accompany that process through workshops, through facilitated spaces, sometimes even through helping them recreate their spheres of governance and stuff like that.
Oh, lovely. What kind of organizations do you work with most then, or is it quite a mix?
A mix. Yeah, like I think, like for me, the work that I've been doing with Soul has just been like working with some organizations in the US. Just like at the moment, we're building some proposals like for indigenous communities that are starting to create like a lot of regenerative economies, and how do then they, from the actions that they've already created and the project that they are doing, how do they elevate that into actually creating a movement? How do you create agency on everyone else to actually see that not someone else has to tell you that you need to do something, but how do we create agency that you feel part of that process, to be like, this is my community, this is something that, this is the world that I want to live in, this is the action that I want to take as a citizen in that sphere of work. And other ones are like more private organizations that are like trying to also change the way that they are working, and they're understanding that probably a very, very hierarchical system of working doesn't work for them, but sometimes they want to transition into like governance straight away, but it's actually, that's the hardest bit to do, and it's really easy to crack if the conditions are right. So you need to start from that individual transformation and creating these spaces for people to come together. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix.
That is a mix. I'm just thinking about councils, like local
yes.
authorities leading that.
And actually, like I haven't been lucky to work on that sphere, but a couple of my colleagues do work on councils, and they're working, especially like in Amsterdam, they're like advising a lot of governments of how do you unleash the democratic citizenship on people on that sphere. And it's definitely something that they're doing.
That is interesting. Yeah, I think Italy has a really good participatory, like small governance community kind of mindset sometimes too.
Yeah. And I think actually that's something that we're trying to explore more, like where, because also part of the stuff that we're doing is like researching where elements have like, where have they done really good work, what's missing, what can we bring and stuff. So yeah, it's quite exciting. I really like that work actually.
Yeah, I can tell. We when I was kind of putting together the Keystone program, we had a phrase of like, we're moving at the speed of trust. So like that idea of like, we can only move so fast with the trust that we've established together, and then you can move forward. And it's stuck with me so long.
It's so true.
Guide us through, or tell us about an experience where you had a feeling of awe, or you could tell us the last time you experienced a state of flow.
I think in terms of a state of flow, I definitely found it like fully last year when I was doing that workshop that I was talking about. Like I created this project called the Humanized Project, and I was doing it in partnership with Soul.com as well, and it was part of my fellowship, and I was just so happy. I think I was just like properly in my happy place, because it was such a diverse group of people, and they were all youth and around like probably between 20 and 33, and very different backgrounds. They were all from all over the world, but seeing how they came together and how they show up at the beginning on just being a bit fearful and just being like, I'm not really sure if this is the space for me, but then through the process of going through it together and creating a safe space for them, seeing them show up how they actually really are, just made me feel so happy. Like I cannot even explain like how happy I felt. And for me, I think the biggest element of the whole workshop was seeing them later host like meaningful conversations with people centered on what did community look like. And it was not like these themes were part of the whole process that we were looking into, but the conversations that they wanted to start with people were decided by them. And I was really happy to see them take that really like big ownership and just sitting later so comfortably. Some people were like, okay, really, really shy, and be like, okay, I'm never going to be able to host a meaningful conversation. And then just sitting there, leading the conversation, asking really deep questions to everyone in the space, and then getting later text messages of like, oh, I've started this in my university and I'm doing this and I'm bringing my community to work on this. I definitely felt like I was like on fully state of flow. I get, I think, a lot of energy from other people just showing up as their best in the world, and yeah, it really makes me so happy. Yeah.
Just wrapping things up, do you have a 5-year plan, or can you see yourself somewhere in 10 years' time?
Not really. And I think it's because of this stage of life that I'm right now. Because last year was like deciding, actually, I'm going to explore. Like, I feel still I'm on a really explorative phase right now. And I have this, my friend sent me this life compass, and like a 5-year thing that I'm planning to do. But I've decided actually to postpone it properly until June, because I still feel like I'm exploring. Like, I'm still new on my dark matter job, and I really like it. The Humanized Project is something that I want to bring back to the table and work more closely again with community. So I'm just like trying to organize my life right now, and what I'm thinking is like asking myself also the hard questions, like how does that look like to free up a day to also make sure that this work happens? What's the shape that takes in the world in terms of funding to be able to do that work in the world? And so yeah, I'm definitely on a exploration stage, and I actually find it really hard to completely visualize the 5 years, but two things that have become clear to me through last year, because my wobble even was around like, do I even want to be in Edinburgh? Like, I was just really thinking maybe we should go back to Ecuador. That's something that has become really clear. I want to be in Edinburgh.
Okay.
And we want to stay here, and we found a like beautiful community, and I think it was more around the stage of lockdown and what brought with that with maternity. And I definitely want to be working with, like, even if it's like a project or 2 projects a year, actually doing work on the grassroots and working with communities, especially on that, like, elements of trust and community building. So that's definitely on my list.
I love that. And as you should, because obviously it lights you up, and I'm sure you're brilliant at it. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Anything you want to ask or add?
I think just something that I really like about your story is the want to play, like, and explore and not be fearful of it. So you talk obviously about trust at the beginning, and then along with that trust comes conversations with people and being open with your current employers, saying, actually, I want to move on. And I think that's a powerful tool that a lot of people could bring into their own work. You don't have to stop learning or stop exploring yourself, especially in your work in life. And I think that's a really nice thought to have, and something that can be pulled out of this podcast. Yeah. And I hope that other people feel that way with it as well. I don't know, I just think that's a really nice thought. The thought of, you don't have to be stagnant, you don't have to stop, you can keep going, moving forward, exploring new things.
You know what I mean, especially when you were saying about like younger people listening to this podcast, and what you're saying about play. I think the world is still just trying to tell us like, oh no, just like this is the one direction that you need to take. And I think life just shows you like it's not. Like, you can just change as many times as you want. And there's definitely something that I've learned on the way, because I think before I was just like, this is the direction, and I wish I was able to just play and be more explorative earlier and just trust my gut more. And I always felt it, but it took me long. And I'm like, if that's one message that people can listen, is like, just play, just trust the process, that through anything that you do, you're going to learn something. And like the best thing that you can do is learn in life, because something else will come out and will start to show you the way. And if you don't explore, you're never going to find the answer to stuff. You're never going to just see things in a new light. You're going to just be like, oh, this is my frame of reference all the time.
That's brilliant. I love that. I love it. And it's such a good wrap up for kind of working for progress for yourself. And you're probably thankful you had the wobble, and look how far you've come, and like, look what you're giving to the world as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much to Nasim for joining us today. If you would like to find out more about Dark Matter Labs or Soul.com, you can reach them via their websites, which are linked in our bio. To hear more about Tribe Porty and Keystone, you can find us on all social media platforms. Please head over to our websites and subscribe to our newsletters, which includes monthly blogs to provide helpful insights into how we craft our work and lives. This has been Working for Progress. We hope you join us again.